Good morning. Brian Hale with Mortgage Advisory Partners. It's Monday, July 8th. I'm actually recording this on the evening of July 7th because I have a conflict in my calendar tomorrow morning. And I wanted to get this video done for posting on our social media channels for Mortgage Advisory Partners. Above, as always, or in this link, is a link to the weekly newsletter that we publish, as well as a link to subscribe to the newsletter. I encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter. It's free. If you subscribe, you get it on Friday afternoons as opposed to Monday mornings, and encourage you to do it. Subscriptions remain strong, and I think a lot of people get a lot of value out of it, get a lot of very nice, kind notes back, and I think there's enough information in this on a Friday afternoon to be able to help prepare you for the weekends, where, again, 70% of apps in the industry tend to be taken on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And so this is a way for us to publish something that could help you be prepared for the weekend. So clearly last week was a favorable week for interest rates. The headline in the newsletter this week is Economic Data Building a Case for Rate Cuts. The most consensus view of rate cuts at this point is perhaps 2 rate cuts, one coming in September and one coming after the election, more likely in the December time frame. There's also a second thought, which is if we don't get one in September, the reality is we may not see one till after the election, because the Fed will fear appearing to be putting its thumb on the scale for the election. And without regard to anybody's politics in this process, the Fed is not going to want to be seen somehow tilting the wheel one direction or another. And so if we get a great CPI number here this coming Thursday, I'll talk more about that in a couple of seconds. If we get a great CPI number this Thursday, and that number continues, and then when we get the July jobs number at the beginning of August, if those continue to be favorable for interest rates, meaning showing a slowing economy, then I think we're going to see likely a rate cut here in September, and conceivably a second one by year end. Now, again, that compares at the beginning of this year. People were talking about 6 and 7 rate cuts this year, and us being in the low 5s from a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and that's clearly not going to happen this year. In fact, and I don't want to be the bearer of difficult news here, but it's my own view that we're not going to see low 5s or mid 5 interest rates likely until early or maybe even mid 2026. We just don't see the process, and that's the only thing that could change that. One, the election could change it if the markets perceive it in some way that is materially detrimental to the economy, meaning the economy would slow and inflation would continue to come down. We could see a run on that basis, but other than that, I just don't see materially, and by material, I'm talking about something in the 5s in the cards, the balance of this year and maybe all of next year. There's an awful lot of thinking now that thinks that 2026 is really the recovery year in both real estate and the mortgage market. I hope it's not that long. I hope it's sometime next year. I do believe we'll continue to see improving rates as long as the economy shows softness, either in jobs, inflation continue to come down. We got a great ISM report, the US ISM report, that was published this past week, combined with the jobs report. Because remember, the jobs report actually came in slightly above expectations, but with a big number for the jobs report this past week. 2, 1, unemployment went up to 4.1, and 2, there was a massive downward revision in last month's number. If we get another downward revision this coming month in August for the July jobs report, we could see some improvement. But when I'm talking about improvement, I'm talking about getting back into the low to mid 6s, where we were back in November and December of last year, which still is great. We see inventories in real estate coming up. We still see fairly good demand for housing out there, even without regard to lower interest rates. So which means it'll improve. But I think when people are looking for a step factor improvement in the market, I think we don't see that until we get back into the 5s and more likely the low 5s to really spur listings, buyers, and affordability and bring that first ratio down. So good week for data that proved to be reflective in the market, particularly on Friday afternoon. There's a great chart in this week's newsletter that shows what happens when we see a material turning point in the unemployment rate, which we just saw over the last 2 months. We saw unemployment begin to tick up. And there's really 5 situations like that since 1983, since actually 1985, when unemployment began to tick up. And what we saw was a material step up in unemployment, thereby slowing the economy, followed by either a mild recession or really materially lower economic activity, which would be very positive for rates, negative for those who obviously are losing their jobs in that process. So again, unemployment this past week and the jobs report combined with the ISM report really moved the market. And next week, we have a number of items coming next week. Let me just quickly flip over here. We've got on Tuesday, Fed Chair Powell is going to be testifying in front of Congress. That's always a risk for volatility in the market, so I would pay attention to his comments through the course of the day. On Wednesday, we get Fed Chair Powell's, he's giving a speech. And then in addition to that, we have the 10-year Treasury auctions on Wednesday, which again, don't normally move the market materially, but obviously something that Fed Chair Powell might say could or always has the potential to move the market, but that's generally not seen as something that'll be volatile this week. But on Thursday, we're going to get core CPI, consumer price index, without food and energy, which tend to be more volatile. We're expecting a 3.4 print on the month-over-month core CPI and a 0.2 print on the year-over-year through June core CPI. Now, both of those are right on top of what we saw in the last periods, but it also would suggest that continued improvement in inflation and we aren't going backwards. So CPI will be important. If for some ungodly reason CPI were to come in materially hotter, we could see a quick reversal in rates on Thursday as those numbers are printed at 8:30 in the morning East Coast time on Thursday. And then finally on Friday, and it tends to be less volatile and less impactful on the market, we're going to get the wholesale version, the producer price index, core producer price index, month over month and year over year as well. And those are expected to come in actually slightly hotter than the previous period, but they generally are not looked at as being as material as CPI, the consumer price index, as opposed to the wholesale price index. That said, we had our third weekly roadmap call. The weekly roadmap is a weekly sales call, sales meeting. If you're getting great sales meetings from your boss, from your branch manager, from your company, congratulations. I'm excited for you on that basis. If you're not, if you don't get the kind of coaching, specific tactical ideas, great speakers, those kinds of things in your weekly sales meeting, we're trying to as a service to the industry, and this is going to be free throughout the month of July. You can subscribe. The link is in this post where you can go up and register for the call so that you get a link. The call is an hour long every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. It's recorded, so if you miss it, you're able to listen to it as a podcast. We produce a deck that goes out every week immediately after the call that has all of the information, suggestions, ideas, and tactics that we have as part of the call. I stay for an extra 30 minutes beyond the call and answer any questions that people have. We've had good response. We've kind of done a soft launch over the last couple of weeks. We intend to ramp that up materially here going forward. And this week, on Friday, we're going to have Jen Johnson, who's the founder and CEO of the Client Cube, which is a marketing company focused specifically on originators in the mortgage business. And she'll be coming on with some great ideas. Some of you may know Jen from the companies that she works with. But Jen's going to come on and she'll do 20 to 30 minutes with some very specific tactics and ideas that you should take forward as well. In addition to that, we just had Charlie Plum agree to be a speaker. He's going to come on over the next couple of weeks. We don't have him scheduled yet, but we're working on that, mostly on his calendar, to have him come in and talk about mental toughness in this very difficult market. So we're going to release a number of additional speakers over the course of this week. In addition to that, the weekly roadmap has a community site that you can go up on, pull down additional information that we have posted up there. You can see past meetings that we've had. The recordings are posted up as well. The decks are up there. We also provide additional information, any additional stuff that I do in terms of recordings or videos with folks like Dave Savage or Housing Wire or some of these others. Those are up there as well. But also you're able to communicate through the community site with your peers who do what it is you do for a living. So the weekly roadmap is meant to be a great sales meeting to bring you current on data. I do a market update every week in terms of what's going on, the impact, and how to then leverage off that data with your clients and customers. And the reason we pick Friday morning at 9 a.m. is, again, back to this concept that 70% of applications are taken on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday in the marketplace. We're trying to help you be as current and as thoughtful with some specific tactics and ideas that you can implement immediately coming out of the call. And if you're a sales leader, you'll have the deck that you can then turn around and do a meeting with your team. If they're not part of it, we encourage everybody to be part of it. Someday in the future, this will be a subscription call, but right now we're trying to expose people to the call and to help us refine the call by giving us feedback and input. We've got some really fabulous commentary from the first couple of calls, and we're going to continue to improve this thing on a go-forward basis. So it's 1 hour on Friday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific time. You should go out and consider registering for this call. And otherwise, as we often say in the weekly roadmap, we'll see you on the road. And hopefully it's the road to success in this process. So again, I hope everybody has a great week. We'll be posting some additional curated information both out to our subscribers and to the weekly roadmap folks and on LinkedIn in the course of this week as well as we start seeing some of this data unfold. My best to everybody and look forward to talking to you again soon.